Good morning. Welcome back to the Evans Family Garden. It's seed starting day, but first, coffee. Okay, now that I have my coffee, let's start with the seed starting. I'm so excited for today. I've been waiting and waiting. Today I'm just doing my tomatoes, but I have a lot of tomatoes to start. So I have fallen in love with growing tomatoes and eating tomatoes out of the garden, especially my favorite, of course, are little cherry tomatoes. They're bites of sunshine. So I got a little carried away this year in ordering my seeds, and I have so many tomato seeds. I'm not gonna do them all. I don't have space in my garden. I don't label my tags. I just ordered 2,000 tags. Multicolored, so that if I want to, I can color coordinate. This is just half of them. So I chose pink today for the tomatoes, just for funsies. But if I don't label them first before I go outside and start planting seeds in the little things, I won't end up labeling them at all. I have to have these ready to go so that when I drop the seeds in, I can just stick the stick in, because I won't end up going back out there and labeling them afterwards. It doesn't happen for me. There's too many other things to do. So I would make sure that you have some sort of way to label. Now these are plastic labels. They do have more eco-friendly kinds, but these will hold up better to watering and the rain and the sunshine, and just they'll last you a lot longer. And especially if you regrow the same thing next year, you can just rewrite over them or use them again next year. You want to make sure you have tags, lots of tags, plenty of tags. Make sure you have a good marker. I keep my seeds in a storage box. I've gone over this before. You want to keep your seeds in an airtight container so that no moisture gets in them. You want to keep them in a cool, dry place, preferably darker place, so that sunlight, moisture, all of that doesn't get into the seeds and damage them. I also end up putting mine in Ziploc baggies once I've opened them, just to, I know that a lot of the time the seed packets reseal on their own, but I don't want to lose any seeds on accident or have a mix of seeds in the bottom of my basket and just have random tomato seeds and not know what they are. So I kind of already pre-sorted this, but I'll show you what I mean by I went overboard this year in buying tomato seeds, because most of these are all different kinds. There's a few I have duplicates of just because I know I'm gonna like them, or I've grown them in the past and I really like them, so I want to make sure I had enough. But yeah, this winter, especially during the pandemic and I was stuck inside, I went a little overboard and just ordered anything that I could. So I'm not gonna start all of these today. I'm gonna start everything that I'm going to grow in my garden, plus I'm going to start whatever I think other people are going to want to grow in their gardens that I could sell. This is all that I'm planting in my garden this year. And I'm only going to do one plant of each, just because there's so many and I don't have a lot of space. So the flats that I use, I'll show you, they're 72 cell trays. I'm gonna start, for sure, the ones that I'm gonna grow in my garden in those. I'm also probably gonna start a lot of the ones I'm gonna sell in those, and then I have these new bags that I'm testing out that are eco-friendly. They're made out of plant fibers. You don't have to try and take the plant out of them. You just put the whole thing right in the garden. So I'm gonna grow some in those, and then I'm going to transplant, like pot up, even though it's not a pot, from my 72 cell little things. Once they're big enough, I'll pop them into the bigger containers, the ones that actually survive. That way I'm not wasting any of my bags. Sorry, Bijou had to say hi this morning. You say hi? Wants all the love. Tiffin Mennonite tomato. I've heard a lot of good things about this one. I'm really excited. Really excited for this guy. Let's do the rest. This is the one that they mention every single year, so here we go.
Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about a few tools that I use, and then also a few tips and tricks that I have when starting the seeds. There's a few tools that you need to have to get started. You also need to know when to start. The most important part is when to start. As you can see, it's kind of warm here today. Central Valley, California, it's 65 degrees right now. It's supposed to get up to 68 today. It's a warm weekend. I think it's going to drop back down next week, but still, like, spring is here. It's here, guys. I know that like Oklahoma, Texas, all those places are getting lots of snow. Michigan, Arkansas, you guys have like feet of snow, and I feel for you. I don't know how you guys do it. I can't do the snow. I've been a California girl my whole life, grew up in Southern California, so it's actually even colder here than what I grew up with. But yeah, I'm definitely a wimp because I'm wearing long sleeves and it's 65 degrees. So yeah, but I love my California sunshine. So when do you start seeds? Why do I get to start seeds now where so many people have snow and can't do anything and they're just itching their fingers to get started? All depends on where you're growing and what time of year it is. So what you want to do is look up on the internet what zone you are living in. So I just searched my zip code, or you can either do, sorry, truck. You can search your zip code or search the nearest largest city to you, but depending on how far away that is, it's probably better to search your zip code. So just type in Google what growing zone is, and I'm here in Fresno, so what growing zone is Fresno, California. So I'm 7B, and that kind of tells me when, and then you can look up when your expected last frost date is. And so my last frost date was back on February 13th. So I'm a little bit late planting these seeds. That's okay. I don't have a heated greenhouse to keep them in. My greenhouse does still drop in the evenings. It's been getting down to still like 35 degrees outside, 40 degrees. So, and my greenhouse doesn't hold a lot of heat right now. So I didn't want to start any tomato or pepper plants because they really like the heat and I didn't want them to suffer. So I waited a little bit. I was also redoing my garden, laying down, we dug up the whole thing, laid down chicken wire to prevent gophers from getting in, so I was kind of waiting for that. So I'm starting them today. Now that it's getting warmer, they should grow plenty fast enough for me to be able to transplant them out. I have a really long growing season here, so I'm not super concerned about not getting into any tomatoes. So that's the first thing you need to know is when do I plant them out? So on the back of your seed packets, so I have here like a red pear tomato. This one's from M.I. Gardener. And on the back of the seed packet, it's going to tell you when to plant it out, or it should. This one says start indoors 8 to 12 weeks before the last frost date. Now, again, my greenhouse isn't heated, and it's outside. It gets pretty close to the outside temperature, so I didn't have a place to start these indoors per se, and I don't have heat lamps or heat mats or anything like that. So I wanted to make sure that I had enough time that they would survive. But it says start indoors 8 to 12 weeks before your last frost date. So you'll type into Google your growing zone, figure what that is, and then also type in to Google when is my last frost date, or when is my last frost date for this zip code. And it'll tell you, and then you just count back from there. So 8 to 12 weeks before, so that would have been 2 months ago. I could have started these indoors. That's okay. I'll start them today. And then it also tells you on here the days until maturity, 65 days for the Sky Red Pear tomato. So it's a shorter growing period, which is great. So I'll get these pretty soon here. Now that days till maturity, I'm pretty sure it means once the seed has sprouted. So there's a days to germination and then a days till maturity. Days to germinate on this one shows 7 to 14 days, so it's about 1 to 2 weeks, and then from the time it germinates, 65 days until you have fruit growing on your plant. So those are look at on your growing zone, and you can look at, to find out how long your growing season is, you would look at when your last expected frost date is and when your first expected frost date is, and then once you have those two dates, don't try and count it on the calendar, just do Google what is, so say your last frost date is, like mine, February 13th, and then your first expected frost date, ours is probably November 20th or so. Just type into Google how many days between February 13th and November 20th of 2021. And then it tells you how many days that is. That's your growing season. So that'll help you determine what types of plants that you want to grow based on how long they take to maturity. And then because once they're mature, you don't want that maturity date when your last frost date hits, because you want at least a month at least to collect and harvest from that plant. So that's a really important thing. That's your first step before you start seeds, is figuring out when you need to start them. Then once you're ready to start them, you want to make sure you have everything ready. So obviously seeds, all the seeds that you want to start, I have all mine in this little basket here because I have quite a bit that I'm going to start today of tomatoes. You also want the tags that I was making earlier. All these pink tags, I have mine pre-labeled to make sure that they are going to be labeled. That way, as I plant them, I can just stick the tags in as I go so I remember what's what. You also want some kind of soil, seed starter soil. I use this block soil from Burpee. It's a really good quality soil, and it's really compact when you first get it, as you can see. That way it stores really easily. I have a whole bunch of these just stacked up on a shelf. I don't have to have bags and worry about them being on the ground and getting wet. These are really light, really easy, and then all you do is unwrap them, drop them in the bucket, and water it. So let me talk a little bit about why I like this one. It is organic, so there's no added products or any chemicals or anything in here that are going to help your plants grow. I know a lot of people use Miracle-Gro, and that does have chemicals added into it. This one, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. I used that for a long time and it works great. And then I discovered this. I mainly like it because it's so compact and lightweight and easy to store. And then you just add water and it expands, but it's also organic, so there's nothing added into here. It is coconut coir, which recently I've seen a lot of people starting to use. It's really good for your plants. It helps retain the water, really, like it holds in the moisture for your plants. That way your plants have easy access. It doesn't repel the water. Now I know it starts out dry, and dry soil can be really bad about repelling water. And so what you want to do is definitely soak your block. So get it wrapped, throw it in a bucket, put a ton of water in it, and then let it sit there and soak up that water and absorb that water. That way you're starting with damp soil. That's a really important part of starting your seeds, is making sure they're in damp starting soil mix so that it already has the water in it. That way you're not trying to top water them or waiting for the soil to absorb the water from the bottom. If you bottom water, it's already in the soil. It has good water retaining properties. Next thing that you're going to want, obviously, are trays, something to plant your seeds in. So I use these. These are also the Burpee brand. You can use whatever brand you want. A lot of people order them from Amazon, or there's a few other places. I think Bootstrap Farmer is one of them that people get them from. These come as the ones that I order. It's a 72 cell pack. So it comes with these 2 trays and then a bottom tray to bottom water. As you can see, these have holes in the bottom so that the roots can grow through, the soil can absorb the water from the bottom. You're not overwatering your plants. It can drain out easily. They just retain the amount of moisture that they need. And then you're also not damaging your soil by watering on the top. You're watering from the bottom. The soil is allowed to bring it up, and it's not like it's not compacting the soil any more than it needs to be by top watering. It's not getting water on the plants themselves to damage the baby leaves that can be temperamental. So I like these. And then the bottom tray, which I'll show you later. And then if you want to, the other thing you might need is gloves. Of course, I always like to just get my hands dirty. I think it's really important that we get our hands dirty, that we touch the soil. It's so good for you and for your soul. And then the last thing that you're going to need is water, of course. But those are the basic necessities that you want to make sure that you have before you start your seeds. That way you're not like, oh crap, I forgot to get this, and now you have to order it. And with the pandemic, everything's been short. It's hard to get things in, so I would order these things now or go to the store, pick them up, make sure you have them before you start your seeds. Okay guys, somehow I muted myself. Not sure how I did that, but just to recap what I was talking about, I wanted to share about how deep you want to plant your seeds. So rule of thumb, about 2 to 3 times the width of the seed, so not very deep. Don't just like stick your thumb in there and drop the seed in. It'll never make it to the surface. The seed is only so small and it only has so much energy stored in it. So there's energy stored in the seed, and it only has enough to break open the seed and get its first little leaves out into the sunlight. And the minute that sprouts out, it needs to hit the sunlight so it can start getting more energy from the sun so that it can grow even more. If you don't have it close enough to the surface of the soil and it's down too far, when it opens up and it gets there, it's going to have to spend all of its energy trying to reach the surface, and it might not have enough. So, and then it just ends up dying in there. So if you see that your sprouts don't make it and you know that they're good quality seeds, but you never see them reach the surface, it could be because you planted them too deep. So just 2 to 3 times the width of the seed is a good estimate. A lot of the time on the back of the seed packet, it'll tell you how deep it is. But if it doesn't, and every seed is going to be different, but 2 to 3 times the width of the seed. Tomato seeds are teeny, teeny, tiny. I'll show you. So you don't want to plant them super deep. And of course, different varieties of tomatoes are going to be different sizes. So these are a yellow plum tomato. So they're going to be 1 to 2 inches is what it's showing. They're a type of cherry-sized tomato, but look at how small these seeds are. Focus. Little itty seeds in the palm of my hand, kind of like sesame seed size. So you want to make sure, there you go. So you don't want to plant them very deep, like barely a thumbprint impression into the soil. Drop them in and then cover them up with soil, so that way they have enough energy to reach the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and plant those now. And again, I have to pre-label my slots, so 1, I know ahead of time about how many I want to do of each plant, and 2, that way I don't go back and have to remember where I planted each one. So these are the yellow plum tomatoes. I also did yellow pear so I could see the difference, both in taste and size, and it was just I hadn't heard of a yellow plum, so I thought, why not? So since tomato seeds are so small, all I'm going to do is kind of use my fingers and the dirt that got pushed out of the way with my thumbprint, my imprint. I'm just going to kind of push it back over with like a little tiny blanket. Again, you don't want these buried so deep so that they won't have enough energy to reach the surface. So I'm just going to go back in here and cover them up. The other thing that you could do, like when I first filled these trays, how I kind of shook them down and they settled down, you could plant your seeds spread your seeds right then, and then the next layer of soil you could cover over. I have done that before in the past. Again, it just depends on what size seed that you're planting. So that would work really well, especially with like cucumber seeds, watermelon seeds, beans. Not that you would really grow beans in a starter tray, but size-wise, that would be a good, easy option for covering them up with the right amount of soil. Just be careful when you're doing this that you're not accidentally picking up the seed with your finger as it sticks and carrying it over to the next row over. Otherwise you might mix up your plants. Not the worst thing in the world, but when you're advertising a certain kind of tomato that's going to grow and a different kind grows, that would be fun to explain. Anyway, so there we go. I'll go ahead and get a tray, fill it with water, and set those guys in it, show you how that works. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun starting seeds with you guys. Show me your seeds in the comments below. Put in pictures, put in any questions that you have on tips and tricks or if you have any tips and tricks on how to start seeds, put any questions that you have about seed starting and I'll try and answer them for you. I know a lot of you aren't going to get to start your seeds for a few more months, and that's okay. Now would be a good time to prep and make sure you have all of the different tools that you need to start. Make sure you have the seeds that you want to start. It's a good planning opportunity right now. Take the time to figure out what you're going to plant, where you're going to plant it. Go and research your growing zone, how long you have, what varieties you can grow in your zone and your growing season. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something, and I hope that you grow a garden. Go get your hands dirty, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.